Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is News and Week in Review, although it will be a fairly short News and Week in Review. The reason for that is because I'm filming this like a week in advance. I'm at WSBG this past week. In fact, this week is a schedule, let me tell you that. So here's my current schedule, okay? We have Sunday, which is now, today's Sunday for me. Monday is the holiday of Yom Kippur. In fact, Sunday night is the holiday of Yom Kippur. Then from there, I'm going directly to WSBG for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Flying back Friday, because Friday night and Saturday are going to be the holiday of Sukkot. And then I'm going to my family in Toronto for those. In fact, Saturday and Sunday, technically. So Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, the holiday of Sukkot, which means I'm not back here again until next Monday, which means this right now is the last hour of filming time that I have in my studio for the next 8 or 9 days. Some days my schedule is a lot. Some days I've prepped, I've planned, I've gotten all the things I need done as much as possible. But let's go ahead and dive into this again, fairly short, because again, it's mostly last week. It's not even this week, which means all the things that pop up this week in general, by the way, this is true in general, which is I frequently get people asking well, what about story X? Well, the Week in Review goes up Saturday. I usually film it either Wednesday or Thursday, so anything that happens Thursday or Friday, usually too late for this week, and it goes into next week. In this case, anything that happened Monday through Friday didn't make its way into this Week in Review. Including the fact that, speaking of which, the WSBG Winner is announced. WSBG, the World Series of Board Gaming, the winner of the new World Series of Board Gaming, the winner's name is... I don't know. I mean, you can Google it. I'll throw a link down below, because why not? But, I mean, they have a winner, I'm sure, I imagine, because that's how it works. That's how time and numbers and tournaments work. So, by now, there's a winner of the World Series of Board Gaming. I just don't know who it is. But in other news, Lucky Duck Games announced that they are doing a Food Chain Magnate Deluxe Edition. So Food Chain Magnate is going to have a deluxe edition, which is very, very cool for a big fan of Food Chain Magnate like myself, who also thinks that Food Chain Magnate does... not hot garbage. Hot garbage is an intense description, but I think Food Chain Magnate looks blah. Just meh. It looks completely forgettable, and it has a high price tag attached. And so now it will have a high price tag attached, but it will instead look a little bit less bland and forgettable. I believe Matt Paquette and Studio are doing the redesign. I've already seen pictures and whatnot, and it so far looks like a good blend of still being very low-key while having a drop more pop to it. We'll be launching on GameFound November 14th. Keep your eyes peeled for that in case you are interested in Food Chain Magnate, but the looks always put you off. This is your opportunity to go ahead and jump on it. And then in other news, there's a little article I read this past week about old people and board games and how that can stave off loneliness. Surprise for the article, it doesn't just work in old people, it works in me too. Board games stave off loneliness. I have a child visiting. Sorry about that small interruption. Turns out children also stave off loneliness. But that's all I have as far as the news of the week. Like I said already, I don't have a lot of news since the last video, so it is what it is. But with that, let's go ahead and dive into the topic of the week, which the topic of the week is it's something I've talked about before. Nothing new, but I like throwing these kinds of things into the week in review because it's a good opportunity to rehash old ground without doing a full dedicated video. And the rehashing of old ground is negative reviews and why they are such a pain to deal with. Meaning, as a reviewer, as a content creator, to give negative reviews feels like such an uphill battle that just isn't worth it. Specifically, no pun included, NPI, they put out a video critiquing Lords of Ragnarok. Very, 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 very heavily, mind you. Now, on a personal note, I have not played Lords of Ragnarok since since the prototype, so I can't give you an updated opinion on my end. I know I very much enjoy Lords of Ragnarok. I'm very excited to dive into it. That has nothing to do with anything. My opinion has to do with the nature of negative reviews and the pushback they receive, and why they often aren't worth it, regardless of whether or not I agree with this particular negative review. But they put out a very negative review. And then that proceeded to result in hundreds and hundreds of comments in a variety of different areas, from YouTube videos to BGG forums to wherever, to Facebook posts, all about how their review was wrong. They didn't play it the right amount of times. They didn't play it the right way. They got these rules-based information wrong. They missed that small adjustment that totally invalidates their opinion. Their review is wrong. This is going to be a very short topic of the week because I don't want to beat a dead horse. I've talked about this on the channel. If you're new here, first of all, welcome aboard. And if you're not new here, well, we've talked about this before. But negative reviews are one of those tricky things that they're often sought after. When a content creator isn't negative enough, people want negative reviews. People want them to be more critical. Why are you always so okay with games? Why don't you be more critical? But when you actually take the time to be critical, and I've been critical in reviews, speaking for myself, when you are more critical, more often than not, that's when you get the most pushback. It wasn't fair, it wasn't done right, you played with the wrong group, you played with the wrong player count, you played with the wrong number of times, whatever you did, your opinion is wrong. You don't get the same pushback on a positive review. The way it works is you get pushback on a general level of positivity, but you get pushback on specific negativity, which is so fascinating to me. If you like a game, if I like a game, I usually don't get people asking how many times did you play it. If I dislike a game, I will get people asking how many times I played it, because that's important. Because me being like, not me, but me being you, I love that game. And if you don't love that game, or if I spend $200 on that game, I want your opinion to be invalidated. And I get that, by the way. I do. I'm not even saying I don't get it. I'm saying to me, it's just that dichotomy of, we have to create an infrastructure that actually makes sense for what you're trying to get out of it. If you, as a consumer, want negative content, then take the negative content and take it with whatever degree of whatever you want. If you see a review of a game that you don't agree with, if you are someone that bought into Lords of Ragnarok and you haven't played it, and therefore you disagree with the review because you don't want it to be true, just do so. I mean, just disagree with the review. It doesn't need to be an attack on the credentials. It could just be, your opinion doesn't align with mine. Which, by the way, it's NPI. There's a decent chance that when it comes to an Awakened Realms title, there's a decent chance that if you like Awakened Realms titles, well, they historically generally don't. So you can invalidate the review just based on the general, without having to get into like them being wrong. It's just as a matter of taste, as a matter of personal preference. You can just assume the other person has a different opinion than you. You don't need to attack it as credentials. You can just say, I don't think your opinion will match mine. There you go. You can feel better about it. You can move on with your life. There are plenty of content creators who I don't align with. Meaning in terms of the content, not in terms of personality, in terms of consuming content. There are content creators who I get a ton of value out of. I'm subscribed, I watch their videos, and I get a lot out of them. Sure, I'm a content creator, but I still watch content creators. And there are plenty of content creators who I don't get value from. There are content creators who are too overall positive. Everything they put out is just sheer praise. I don't get value from that, so I just don't watch. There are content creators who are too negative. They almost feel like they're looking for things to critique. I don't get value out of that, so I don't watch. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't get value out of him or her or whoever. I'm saying that as a personal note, I just don't watch the content creators that I don't find that their opinion gives me something of value. And something of value is relative, because sometimes I'll watch things because I think they're entertaining, but I don't necessarily agree with their opinions. But I'm still getting something out of it. I'm being entertained while talking about board games. But figure out for yourself who you get value from. Which channels give you some degree of positivity or benefit. You don't need to attack the source. You don't need to critique people in terms of what they are or aren't doing. You can and probably should provide some degree of feedback. Feedback is very different. Feedback is along the lines of like, hey, I really love, for instance, in my case, I get a frequent comment I'll get is, hey, I love your videos, but I wish you talked a bit slower. That's feedback. That's useful information. I don't talk slower because every time I suggest that I'll talk slower, I get a lot of people who say, well, no, I actually like the fact that you talk fast, so I'm kind of darned if you do, darned if you don't, and at that point I'll go with my natural instincts, but it's still useful feedback. Feedback is always useful. If you're watching a content creator, you feel they're too negative, it's not the worst thing to say, hey, by the way, I love your presentation, I love your content. I will say, in general, I feel that your opinion drifts a bit more towards negative, and I do wonder if that kind of thing is for me. They, as the content creator, can now take that information into account. There's a difference between providing useful feedback as a consumer of said content versus attacking something at its source. Figure out who you get value from and why. Provide useful feedback so that maybe they can take that into account and either they change or they don't, but at least you have that opportunity to see if you could slightly guide something for you. It's no different than walking into your local restaurant and being like, hey, by the way, you know, I usually get that steak sandwich and I love it. Recently, I feel it's been a little oversalted. Is that something you can work on? And either they do or they don't, but at least you've given them the opportunity to address it or to fix it. Now, you can't demand things in life. Demanding things in life is just weird. But, not weird, I mean, it's expectations only go so far. But I just think it's fascinating that negative content, critiquing content, is often the most sought after and is often the most harshly attacked. Again, things we said before, so at that point, I'll move on from the topic of the week and move into the week in review, starting with the games I played. Specifically starting with Hanamakoji, which I haven't played in a few months, and oh, it's so good to play it again. Hanamakoji is fantastic. It's just a fantastic game. It's such a great experience. I have Hanamakoji, I have Geisha's Road, I have all the various packs. I still find I play Hanamakoji, the basic mode, the most, but it's just such a good game. I actually had the longest game of Hanamakoji I've ever had. A full 5 rounds of play because one card never shifted allegiances. Now, there is a way to actually end the game after, like, I think 3 rounds or possibly any number of rounds. There's a tie-breaking mechanism so you don't have an infinite game because, in theory, the rule structure around Hanamakoji allows for an infinite game. But I've always just played because I've never had a game go more than 3 rounds, so I never needed that. And at this point, I was actually fascinated by how the game just kept on going and going and going. We had two players, fairly well matched, consistently going back and forth. I lost at the end. I did sadly lose. But we just had a card in the middle that would not change sides, and because of that, it was possible for no player to win. And again, 5 rounds in. It took 5 rounds for the game to eventually be decided, but it was incredibly satisfying to actually play through it. I think Hanamakoji is a phenomenal game, and I highly recommend it. Cascadia is another game that I've been returning to very heavily this week, partially because of Cascadia Landmarks. Cascadia Landmarks is actually going to be an upcoming review. A past review. My timelines are all out of sync. Cascadia Landmarks is a past review I put up this past week. But Cascadia is a game that I frequently pull out. I frequently play it. So I dove into a bunch, both regular Cascadia as well as Landmarks, as well as multiplayer, solo, all of that. Just getting a whole bunch of plays of Cascadia in, well, to be able to cover Landmarks, and it's a great game. Cascadia consistently delivers a good experience. Landmarks we'll talk about, or we did talk about in the review, we'll talk more about in this video, I guess, when we get up to it, but that's Cascadia. Then we have Revive. Revive is, Revive from Porter Games. Phenomenal game. I've continuously been playing it. I've been playing it at a variety of player counts. Ever since my review, I've continued to dive into it. I still think it's best as a 3-player experience, but I still like it a lot at 2, 4, it drags a little bit, but overall Revive is just a phenomenal experience. In fact, I think my review for Revive, I think only goes up this next week or this last week. I'm not entirely sure. It goes up today. My review for Revive goes up today. I filmed it like a week and a half ago, so I'm sorry, I'm out of sync on this one. But either way, my review for Revive goes up today, and basically Revive is a phenomenal game. I guess spoilers to my review, I think Revive is amazing. Usually I try to specifically not talk about games I'm reviewing in my topic of the week, but because of my timelines, things are a bit out of sync. But with that, let's go ahead and move into the actual week in review. Starting off with this past Saturday, I did a review for Sirens. Sirens is a great game. I think Sirens is a lot of fun. I think it's a pocket game. There's only so much you can get out of it. But if you're looking for another button shy-esque style game, I think Sirens is really strong in terms of the 2-player drafting and the ability to score. I don't think it's going to hold up for like 40 plays, but I think it holds up for a good 10, 15, maybe 20 plays before I start shifting on from it. But I think Sirens is very good. Really enjoyed that one, at least for now. Then later on Saturday, I did a review for Art Society from I'm blanking on the name. Mighty Boards. But Art Society, it's an auction game where you bid on pieces of art that you put on your wall. I think it's very solid. I really enjoy Art Society. I think the gameplay itself, the gameplay mechanics are good without being amazing and great. But the presentation, the art, the graphics, all the whole package of what it is, the accessibility, the game time, all those things just culminate for me for a 4 out of 5. I think is really, really strong. While that's not necessarily doing anything amazingly new, just the combination, the sum of its parts, really strong game. Highly recommend it. Then we have on Sunday. Sunday we had all the games I need to review. This is me going over 100 or so games that I have in my review backlog. Many of them from the past few months, a whole bunch of them from, 3 to 6 months, and then a handful that have been sitting around for 6 months plus. It happens as a reviewer that sometimes things just go into the queue. I always have my stuff in a list. I always have my stuff in a section, so I do get to everything. But yes, some things do take more time than others, and this was a video of just going over my sins, so to speak, of things in the backlog. Again, many of them are not actually late, so to speak. Many of them are still just, in a normal sequence of flow, but some of them are actually way overdue, and I've been meaning to get to them, and we'll see what happens. But that was Sunday, a video of all the games I needed to review. Monday was 2 Back Not to Back, going over all the crowdfunding campaigns. We had Dragon Eclipse, we had more updates on Ice Fair and Guard, we had, Beast, we had Final Girl, a whole bunch of amazing experiences that are out there, and I highly recommend a bunch of them. For me, my personal favorite is going to be Beast easily from all of those. I think that there are a lot of great games in that video, but Beast for me is my personal favorite from a pure gameplay stance. On Tuesday we had a few videos as usual. We had a gameplay for Erun going up. Erun, the Light and Darkness, or Light and Shadows. I think it's Light and Darkness expansion. That's going to be launching on Kickstarter, or I guess launched on Kickstarter. We had a gameplay for Erun going up on the channel. And then later on Tuesday, we had a review for Potions of Azerland. Potions of Azerland, I gave a 3.5 out of 5. I really like Potions of Azerland. There are aspects of the game that held it back a drop for me, specifically the lack of crazy combos. I've recently been playing well, I guess small spoilers. I've recently been playing a lot of Apiary, and Apiary, which will be going up next week, has a lot of crazy combos. Castle Burgundy has a lot of crazy combos. I think Potions of Azerland is really, really well done, but there's no fun comboing that really felt as rewarding, which is the small thing that held it back for me. But a 3.5 out of 5, and it's still an enjoyable game. Then lastly on Tuesday, we had a review for White Castle going up. White Castle was kind of a similar idea, but in a very different mode. White Castle actually give you a lot of ways to have fun turns, but you only have 9 dice the whole game, which means the game is incredibly tight. It's one of the Devere games. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It's an incredibly tight experience, to the point of possibly feeling a little bit too tight and not being able to, like, a little bit too much repetition within what you're trying to do within the game. So that was White Castle, a 3.5 out of 5, a strong game. I think it's a game that's going to be rated higher than my rating. Like, my rating's a 3.5, which I guess translates into a 7, but I think it's going to be higher than a 7 on BGG, because I think it's really well done. Just felt a little too tight and constricting for what I'm looking for. I like a little bit more freedom, a little bit more chaos, a little bit more craziness in my Euros. Then Wednesday. Wednesday might be a little up in the air because, well, we may have a review for Bitoku, so we'll see. It's a scheduling thing, so we'll talk about that next week, I guess. But then later on Wednesday, we also had a gameplay for Tanares, diving further into Tanares Adventures, so you want to continue that journey and see how that went. And then lastly on Wednesday, we had a review for Cascadia Landmarks. Cascadia Landmarks is a mixed bag. I think Cascadia is amazing, and I think Cascadia Landmarks does not make Cascadia worse, but it's also not the expansion I was hoping for. I felt that aspects of Cascadia Landmarks just felt like some degree of number crunching. It adds more variability to Cascadia in a good way. I highly recommend Cascadia Landmarks for those who are heavy Cascadia players and want more variability, but if you're a new Cascadia player, I'd actively recommend against it. And if you're someone who plays Cascadia here and there and you like it but you don't necessarily love it, I don't think you need Landmarks, but it's certainly not a bad expansion either. So middling on Cascadia Landmarks. Again, I'm happy it exists. For me, it gives me variability, and I play Cascadia so much that variability is a good thing in and of itself. Then Thursday. Thursday, I had my cheapest 10 cost per plays, or my lowest 10 cost per plays, my best 10 cost per plays, whatever you want to title that. But effectively, whenever you buy a game, if you buy a game for $30 and you play it 10 times, it's $3 per play. If you play it 100 times, it's 30 cents per play. And so I basically went through my best cost per plays across my 10 best cost per plays in my collection, going all the way up from, I think it was like around maybe 70 cents, something like that, down to like 15 cents per play. Very, very strong list of games that have more than delivered their worth to me. That was Thursday's video. Then Friday. Friday we had a few videos going up again. We had a review for Dragonkeepers. Gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I think Dragonkeepers is charming, it's cute, it's accessible, it's an easy game, but it doesn't necessarily wow me either. The gameplay was a little light, the decision space was a little light, but that's Dragonkeepers, a 3.5 out of 5 from Cosmos. Then we had a review for Orion Duel go up. Orion Duel is phenomenal. I think it's excellent. It's an abstract two-player game of trying to control the galaxy. I think it's really well done. I worry it might get repetitive over time. I find some abstracts hold the test of time for me. Others are really good puzzles that I keep for a year or two and move on from. I don't know where Orion Duel will end up down the road. It might go up, might go away. We'll see, but for right now, it's a 4 out of 5. I really like Orion Duel from Matago, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And then lastly, on Friday, we had a review for Dorfromantik. Dorfromantik is good. I like Dorfromantik. I also didn't feel the need to finish it. Dorfromantik is definitely lighter than what I was hoping for. I knew it was light going in, but I thought it was going to be my city light, and I think it's even lighter than that. And so, Dorfromantik, I both enjoy, had fun with it, and also am ready to move on from it. It's a good game. I think it has an audience for sure. I understand why it's so popular, but for me, it's just good and not necessarily great. Which brings us to today. Today, we have a few things going up. We have a gameplay of Dice Throne, specifically Wolverine versus Psylocke. Wolverine versus Psylocke going up today. You can check to see who won that. And then we'll have a review for Revive, and I guess you already know my opinion on Revive because I kind of spoiled it earlier today, but I like Revive a lot, so check out that review if you want an opinion on how I feel about Revive, with more nuance and details and all those fun things. And then we have next week. We have a few things going up. We're going to have the worst 10 cost per plays. So my worst possible 10 cost per plays. I had the best one going up this past week. We have the counter to that going up next week. And then also I'll have a review and gameplay for Apiary from Stonemaier Games going up later this week, as well as, of course, a dozen other videos, because that's what we do every single week on the channel. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Boarding & Co. I hope you have an excellent week, and as always, I hope you have a good one.